The champagne glass slipped from the CEO's hand and shattered across the marble floor. Nobody moved. She stared at the single dad standing in front of her, her voice barely audible. "Am I too old for you?" He looked at her for a long second. Then he answered quietly, "No, but I think you're afraid I'll leave before you get the chance to be yourself." Her face changed. Because somehow, a man she had met less than an hour ago had just named the fear she had spent 10 years hiding. It had started at a charity dinner in Chicago. Daniel Brooks hadn't even wanted to attend. He was a 43-year-old elevator mechanic, a widower raising his 9-year-old daughter, Lily, in a small apartment on the South Side. His week had been brutal. 2 broken elevators. 1 unpaid medical bill from years ago. A daughter who had recently started asking questions about why other kids had mothers and she didn't. But Lily had insisted he go. "Dad, you promised you'd try one new thing this month." So Daniel had borrowed a dark suit from his brother and walked into a ballroom filled with people who seemed to belong to another universe. That was where he met Claire Morgan, 46, CEO of a rapidly growing construction technology company. Elegant, intelligent, and surrounded by people who laughed slightly too loudly at everything she said. Daniel didn't know who she was. That was exactly what caught her attention. When she mentioned her company, he simply nodded. "Sounds like you have a lot of elevators." She laughed. It was the first genuine laugh she'd had that evening. For 20 minutes, they talked without pretending. Daniel told her about Lily's obsession with astronomy. Claire admitted she had never learned to identify a single constellation. Then came the first surprise. Claire wasn't supposed to be there either. She had only come because her late father's foundation was honoring her that night. "He built the company," she said quietly. "I just inherited the expectations." Daniel noticed something in her expression. "You don't sound proud of that." "I am." She looked down. "I'm just tired of being proud all the time." Before he could answer, a woman from Claire's board approached and whispered something urgently in her ear. Claire's shoulders stiffened. The woman glanced at Daniel. "Your meeting starts in 10 minutes. Claire nodded. Daniel understood immediately. He stepped back. "You should go." Claire looked surprised. "You're not offended?" "Why would I be? Most people are." Daniel smiled faintly. "I've got a daughter waiting for me at home. That keeps things in perspective." That should have been the end of it. But Claire followed him outside. The cold Chicago wind pushed against them as they stood beneath the hotel awning. "I hate that I'm doing this," she admitted. "Doing what?" "Leaving." Daniel looked at her. "You're allowed to leave." She smiled sadly. "People usually tell me to stay." Then she did something unexpected. She asked for his number. Not because she was CEO. Not because he was impressed by her. Because, for the first time in years, someone had made her feel like a person instead of a position. 2 weeks passed. They met for coffee, then breakfast, then a walk along the river. Claire met Lily by accident at a small neighborhood bookstore. Lily immediately asked her, "Are you my dad's girlfriend?" Daniel nearly dropped the book in his hand. Claire laughed so hard she had to cover her mouth. But then Lily looked at her seriously. "You don't look happy enough." Claire blinked. "What?" "My dad says people smile with their eyes when they're really happy." Daniel stared at his daughter. "I never said that." "Yes, you did." Claire smiled. But later, sitting alone in her car, that little girl's words stayed with her. Because Claire realized something terrifying. She was becoming attached. Not to Daniel's life. To the ordinary pieces of it. The grocery lists. The broken toaster. Lily's school drawings. Daniel falling asleep during movies because he worked too much. Things Claire had spent years convincing herself she didn't need. Then came the second twist. Daniel received an offer from a maintenance company in Seattle. Better salary. Better hours. Enough money to finally give Lily the life he thought she deserved. He didn't tell Claire immediately. He was afraid she would see it as a rejection. Instead, Claire discovered it from Lily. "You're moving?" she asked Daniel later. "Maybe." Claire went silent. "So that's it." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean? You found something better, and you're leaving?" His expression hardened. "It's a job, Claire." "No. It's an escape." That hurt because it was partly true. Daniel had spent 5 years rebuilding his life after his wife died. He had learned never to depend too heavily on anyone, especially someone who could disappear. Claire had her own fear. Daniel could lose his wife. Claire had never allowed herself to love anyone enough to risk losing them. They argued. Quietly. No shouting. Just 2 adults saying the wrong things because the right ones were too frightening. Daniel left. 3 days later, Claire's company suffered a major setback. A critical project collapsed after a subcontractor falsified safety reports. The board demanded that Claire take responsibility. For the first time, she wasn't certain she could. Then Daniel called. Not to offer business advice. Not to save her company. He had heard about the accident and simply asked, "Are you okay?" Claire closed her office door. "I don't know." There was silence. Then Daniel said, "You don't have to know tonight." Those 7 words broke something inside her. Because everyone else wanted solutions, Daniel was the first person who gave her permission to be scared. But the biggest surprise came the next morning. Claire discovered that Daniel had been investigating the failed project himself. Years earlier, before becoming an elevator mechanic, he had worked in industrial safety inspections. He had noticed something in the reports. The subcontractor hadn't simply falsified documents. Someone inside Claire's company had ignored multiple warnings to protect the launch deadline. Daniel handed Claire the evidence. She stared at him. "You could have used this." "For what?" "To make me owe you." Daniel shook his head. "I don't want you to owe me." "Then why help?" He looked toward the city outside her office. "Because when someone you care about is drowning, you don't ask what you'll get for throwing them a rope." Claire couldn't speak. That evening, she found Daniel waiting outside the school where Lily attended a science club. She walked toward him slowly. "I turned down the board's recommendation," she said. Daniel nodded. "And I withdrew from Seattle." Claire stopped. "Why?" He looked at her. "Because I realized I wasn't running toward a better life." A pause. "I was running away from another loss." Claire's eyes filled. Then she whispered the question that had been haunting her. "Am I too old for you?" Daniel stepped closer. "No." She looked down. He continued. "You're not too old. You're just finally old enough to know what you don't want to waste anymore." Claire looked at him. "And what do you think that is?" "Time." She smiled through tears. "I thought you'd say love." Daniel smiled back. "Love isn't the thing we run out of first." He reached for her hand. "We run out of courage." 6 months later, Claire didn't magically become less busy. Daniel didn't magically become fearless. And Lily didn't suddenly stop missing her mother. But something changed. Claire started showing up. Not as a CEO, as Claire. She attended Lily's science fair and cheered louder than anyone. Daniel still fixed elevators at 6 in the morning. Sometimes Claire waited for him afterward with 2 coffees. They built nothing perfect. They built something real. And one evening, Lily looked at the 2 of them sitting on the apartment balcony beneath a clear sky. She pointed upward. "That's Orion." Claire looked surprised. "You learned that?" Lily smiled. "No. Dad taught me." Daniel laughed. Claire leaned against his shoulder. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was falling behind. She felt like she had finally arrived. Because sometimes love doesn't ask whether you're young enough, rich enough, successful enough, or ready enough. Sometimes it simply asks whether you're brave enough to stop running. And Daniel's answer changed Claire's life for one simple reason. He didn't promise her forever. He reminded her that she was still worthy of it.